report cards, progress reports. Those are two pieces of paper that your child has. If your child has a progress report, I'm gonna explain this to me. If your child has a report card, then you need to watch today's issue. Progress reports are just little pieces of paper that lets you know how your child is doing in their grades. And if you don't remember, we talked about no pass, no play. Meaning, if you don't pass your classes, you don't play. And progress reports, they help you out. The report card does not come to the end of the 6 weeks. So, I think by the middle of the 6 weeks or 9 weeks, you'll get your progress report. And it'll show you how you're doing. You got a F in there. You got like several weeks to bring up that grade. A school progress report, also known as a report card, is a document that shows the student's academic performance. Progress reports are issued by school students to parents once to 4 times a year. Student progress reports help teachers anticipate the future needs of each student. They used to communicate clearly with parents to help students identify areas where they should apply more effort to seek additional help to be more effective. Student progress reports should be clear and easy to understand. So, it's basically like grades A, B, C, and F. D grades. A through C is a passing grade. C is an average. F is a failing grade. So 60 or below, that's an F. 70 or above, that's a C. 80 to 90, that's a B. And 90 upward, that's an A or A+. So how can you tell? So really, how can you make sure of this? Well, parents, you need to tell you get that progress report in, and you see that, and you sit down with your child, and you're maybe sitting there like they play video games and all. Just basically sit down with them and say, hey, I need you to bring this grade up. And if you don't bring this grade up, I'm going to take away your Xbox and TV. School is important. That's why kids nowadays are not going to class. They rather just be sitting at home eating popcorn when all in fact they're out committing crimes. When report cards come in, that's the final grade. Now when I was a kid and I got report cards, I got paid for my report cards. Like, you get like $5 for A's, $1 for this and this. But for F's, when kids, it's like, okay, my child gets an F, what do I do? Do I take away his stuff? Yes. If you tell your child that if you don't, you want what's best for your child, so you may sit there and say, well, I want my child to get all A's or no, all A's and B's. I've gotten A's and B's, I've gotten F's, but I've learned to push forward. Athletic directors don't even know about the report cards. So, athletics is a privilege, and right, like we talked about, no pass, no play. On your final report card, if you fail, you get to sit out in the next 3 weeks. The bottom line here is, I don't know much because what happened, but the bottom line here is this. If you fail all your classes, you got to repeat the grade. And it's in your progress reports and your report cards. Now the report cards, are the same thing but different. It's a written evaluation of students' academic performance. And parents may sit there and be like, wow, Johnny, you got all A's and B? You got all A's? Great job. You got all A's and B's? Great work. You got a C? C's an average grade. But F's, when parents see an F on the child's report card, their reaction is all pissed off going, hey, you need to study. That's how it is. And when I was a kid, parent has to sign it. When I was a kid, you as a parent have to sign it. So that's the bottom line here with all this. Keep up with the good work. Keep up with your grades. And don't be skipping class. Well, another issue, detention. Nah, we're not going to go into that. But I want to real quickly get into lunch detention. It's just basically, nah, I'm not going to go into that mumbo jumbo. But like I talked about, athletics are a privilege. So if your report card says you're failing, then you don't get to play for 3 weeks. And progress reports help you. They're not to hurt you. And parents, you need to be alert. Your child fails class. They gotta find out what's going on. Talk to them. Don't be all mad saying, "Hey, you got an F in your report card. I'm taking away your TV." Don't be doing that. Talk to your child. Communication's key. That's the whole thing here. It's basically the whole thing here. Just talk to your kids. Communication's key. It develops a healthy relationship. Mobile homes. You may have one, but did you know they can be damaged by earthquakes, quakes? But what you may not know is how much the higher prices are going to stabilize those mobile homes. We'll show you some hidden camera footage when we come back. Stay with us. Mobile homes, the American dream. A home that's safe and affordable. But could you fall prey to scams about your home and safety? What if you were to be scammed by a bunch of people who just says simple things like this and this and this? Tonight, we're going to show you all about these mobile home scams and how you can protect yourself throughout these mobile home scams. It's all about home scams, and then later on we're going to show you another home hidden camera investigation. But first, here's Mike Taibbi.
Hi, I'm Robbie with Coachman.
It's a sales call from a home repair company, the kind of call that goes on every day, all over the country. But is the salesman giving you good advice?
Well, by today's standards, that's woefully inadequate.
Is the work he's proposing really necessary?
All you're going to do is add this earthquake braces.
Is the price fair?
It would run $10,950.
Dateline took cameras into places you've probably never been, under the mobile homes in which millions of Americans live, almost a third of them senior citizens. And we set up hidden cameras to look into the business of repairing and maintaining those homes. It's a vital and important business, but some say it's also the target of crooks and con men who play with the money of old folks on fixed incomes.
He was a liar, and had gone to charm school. I says he could charm the tail off of a snake, and
95-year-old Sarah Hemsley and her husband June say they were conned by a salesman they knew as Harry.
They knocked at the back door.
Said that they wanted a
Go on
free inspection.
free inspection.
The Hemsleys didn't know it, but they were being set up for what you might call the termite trick.
They brought up a 2x4 that long. You know what a 2x4 is? And it was infested with termites. It scared the hell out of me.
The salesman wrote up a contract, nearly $1,800 to replace the wood he said was termite infested. But when the Hemsleys finally saw the wood that was being taken out, they didn't see any termites. A subsequent inspection found the old wood in excellent condition. The Hemsleys think they were conned, that the salesman brought his own termites with him to close the deal.
I'd never in all of my life had anybody ever do me a dirty deal like these people.
And that's a long life.
You're darn right it is. And
The company the Hemsleys dealt with was Advanced Mobile Home Inspections and Services. You'll hear that name again in a moment, but they're not the only one suspected of the termite trick.
When he showed you this board, did you see actual termites?
Oh, yes, I did. They were all over the place.
Helen Wilson's home was inspected by a different company, but she got the same verdict, termites. And, like the Hemsleys, she got suspicious, especially when she questioned the workmen doing the job.
I said, did you see any termites under there? And he said, no. I said, do you see any termites on these boards? And he said, no.
So, logically, what did you think the guy had done?
I realized what he'd done.
Which was?
cheat me.
With a board that came from someplace else.
Yes,
With
yes,
termites that were
yes,
not yours.
Yes,
In both cases, the wood being replaced was here, pads as they're called, that form the base of support for the home. Atop the pads are piers, which look a lot like the jack stands you might use to work on your car. For additional stability, the piers are often clamped to the home at the top and bolted to the pad at the bottom. It's not brain surgery, and in Helen Wilson's case, that's a good thing. Because the state's inspector tells Dateline that not only was the work probably unnecessary, it was also done very badly. Marcel Janacek is a highly experienced contractor who works as an inspector for the California Contractors Board.
There's about 4 inches of loose dirt under this pad.
He showed us how the new plastic pads installed under the Wilson house are thinner than the old wooden pads. To make up the difference, the workers just piled up loose dirt underneath, or extended the tops of the piers past the legal limit. They charged $2,500 and actually destabilized the home. So this is a unit that is considerably less stable now after this job was done than it was before she spent all that money.
Absolutely.
Janacek showed us how the same company botched the plumbing on Mrs. Wilson's home, leaving unsupported pipes that are not up to code. This job cost her almost $3,000. Are these isolated cases? Many in the mobile home repair business say, no way. Have you heard of or have you met senior citizens who have really been devastated, emotionally and otherwise, by what's been done to them by these illegitimate, illicit actors?
Yes, and they're so ashamed of how they've been taken that they don't reach out to anybody.
We'll call this man Roger, not his real name. He still works in the business and says he's clean, but he also says that he knows plenty of others who think of cheating old people as a sport.
And the salesman will come back to the office, he's bragging, I took her for a replumb. Let's get out there and spike the job before it cancels.
And is there a lot of backslapping at the office when that guy comes in?
High fives and, how'd you get her this time? I thought she didn't have any more money.
High fives over taking a frail old lady, huh?
Right.
The state fined Mrs. Wilson's contractor $900 for code violations, and a judge ruled she doesn't have to pay for the work. Sarah Hemsley simply refused to pay for her bogus job.
I says, yeah, send your man out here, let him knock the back door. I got a double-barrel shotgun there, and I'll open the door and blow his head off.
Did he ever show up?
No, he never showed up.
Sarah Hemsley is tougher and maybe luckier than most elderly victims. After she complained to the state, the company, Advanced Mobile Home Inspections and Services, apologized, forgave her $1,800 debt, and ended up paying her $300 to correct faulty work. But we heard that more seniors are being taken advantage of every day, and we wanted to see for ourselves. So, California's Contractor Licensing Board allowed us to videotape one of its regular undercover sting operations. We got an iPhone. Why are these men chatting instead of inspecting? How did this man manage to crawl under a home without getting dirty? And why is this man shutting the door in our face?
We'll answer those questions as the investigation begins when we return. Stay with us. Return to our story. Elderly people are being taken advantage of in their mobile homes by scammers. By company scammers you probably ever heard of. Now we're going to show you what happens in these undercover stings. Here again, Mike Taibbi.
You've probably seen communities like this. Millions of communities like this. You've probably seen communities like this. Millions of senior citizens across the country live in quiet, perfectly manicured mobile home parks. Many live on fixed incomes and put a lot of their money into their homes. And to some unscrupulous salesmen, those millions of homes represent millions of targets. You got a population here that's ripe for the taking in a way.
The senior population is unique in that, they lived in a time when a handshake meant something and people were honest. They actually told the truth.
That old-fashioned trust.
That old-fashioned trust.
Margot Hamilton handles elder abuse issues for California's Riverside County Office on Aging. She hears about fraud committed by mobile home contractors virtually every day. They scare their potential customers.
Yes, they do.
They lie to their potential customers.
Yes. I consider this criminal. It's more than just egregious. It's terrorizing seniors. That's how I view it.
The California Contractor Licensing Board agrees, and allowed us to videotape one of its sting operations aimed at catching crooked contractors and to taking action against them. Playing the homeowner is Rosie, a volunteer senior citizen advocate. She's made appointments with several companies selected by investigators, telling each one the same thing, that she just wants a general inspection to make sure her home is safe. But first, the state's inspector, Marcel Janacek, thoroughly checks it out. Janacek's been in business 30 years, and he served as a state's expert for the last 15.
I check the plumbing for leaks. I check the electrical boxes, make sure they're covered.
Janacek says the home is safe, but it is not in perfect shape. The foundation has water damage that needs to be fixed. He says that should cost about $1,600. And he also says, and this is important, that because of the way this home is dug into the ground, it does not need additional bracing to protect it from California's earthquakes.
If anybody tries to sell her anything else, she doesn't need it. In case of an earthquake, this thing isn't going to go anywhere. It's no safety hazard.
And I want to see what has to be done back there.
Okay, if any, right?
Of the 5 contractors Rosie called, only one echoed that expert opinion. Tim Allard's company is called Home Improvements. He did a thorough inspection and proposed just what the expert said he should, repairing the water damage, but not installing any additional bracing.
I mean, why spend an extra $3,000 on bracing when you don't need to?
Allard spoke with us later and agreed he's in a business with plenty of problems.
There's a lot of good guys out there that do a lot of good work, but there's also that many more that don't. I mean, it seems like seniors are a target.
The other salesman we saw showed us just why seniors need to be wary and to hang on to their wallets.
Oh, hi. Come on in.
For example, here's Shannon Taylor of Southwest Professional Inspection and Construction Services. He walks to the back of the home, opens the hatch, looks underneath, and then sits. And sits. And sits. All by himself for several long minutes. When he goes back inside, Rosie asks him specifically about his inspection of her piers.
Yeah, they're not rusting out.
You looked and saw all of them. I mean, you can see them. Okay.
This fine there. Once you get under these homes, there's plenty of, I mean, you can't just walk under there, but
No.
you have to crawl, but there's room and it's open.
Uh-huh.
He proposes $2,150 worth of work to fix a foundation he hasn't even seen. And another salesman ups the ante considerably.
Tell you what, why don't we take a look underneath? Okay.
These guys are from Advanced Mobile Home Inspections and Services, the same outfit that told Sarah Hemsley she had termites when she didn't. And today, even though our homeowner, Rosie, asks for an inspection, they do nothing of the sort. Salesman Richard Isaias briefly glances under the home, then he and his partner chat for several minutes. That is it. Lance Barnett, head of the California agency that oversees contractors, reviewed our videotape. Is this in any way a useful inspection?
No, this is in no way a useful inspection any more than I can expect the foundation of the building we're in sitting in this room.
But that doesn't prevent the salesman from trying to sell Rosie an elaborate earthquake system.
One of the best systems on the market today are these. They're called Maxi Piers.
Remember, the state's expert says that because of the way this home is dug into the ground, it doesn't need the extra bracing. And remember too, as this video shows, the home has some rusted piers that really do need to be replaced. But Richard didn't look, so he doesn't know.
And then would you replace all the other piers that are there, or just?
leave them, because the
All right.
ones underneath there, they look okay. You know, they're fine. They're not real rusted or anything. So
What's his price for wrong information and unnecessary work?
it'd be for $4,800.
$4,800, 3 times what the state's expert says this homeowner needs to spend. A hefty sale, and the salesman never even got his clothes dirty.
Hello there.
The price gets even steeper with our next salesman, Bill Rysick of California Mobile Home Services.
I'm Rosie Gibson.
He actually does put on a pair of coveralls and crawl under the home, doing the kind of thorough inspection our expert says is necessary. But where our expert said the foundation is basically sound, Rysick says it's bad, real bad.
In my opinion, I don't think they set it up very well. Now, I'm surprised the coach has behaved as well as it has.
But rather than simply fix the existing foundation, Rysick proposes an elaborate earthquake bracing system, which our expert says is not needed, and which is much more expensive.
That would put us in at $53.20 for everything.
$5,320. Remember, the state's inspector says she only needs to spend $1,600 and not on earthquake bracing. That's why everybody tells you to get competing bids on a big job, but that's not what this salesman wants to hear.
If you want to go out and do bids and all that crap, you're certainly welcome to do it, but what ends up happening is that you don't compare apples with apples.
He says his company uses better materials than the others, so it's hard to compare his bid with anybody else's. And he makes it even harder because he refuses to put his bid in writing.
You want to write it out?
No, I don't need to. We already talked about it, and if you want us to work for you, that's fine.
In the end, he does write his name, phone number, and price on a sheet of paper, along with notes so vague there's really no way to compare apples with apples, even if we want to.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Robbie with Coachman. How are you?
Oh, hi.
Another guy pushes the price into the stratosphere and also shows us some key sales tactics. His name is Rob Bickham of Coachman Mobile Home Services. Bickham, too, spends a good 20 minutes on his inspection, and a lot more time than that making nice with the homeowner.
Did you have arthritis? You have got to try glucosamine sulfate. I kid you not.
Of course, there's nothing wrong with being friendly, but
a lot of these seniors are lonely, and they don't visit or talk to anybody. So when a guy goes in there and he spends time with them, and they feel it's quality time, they trust him.
And Bickham does more than charm Rosie. He shows her a book of photos of mobile homes destroyed by earthquakes.
So even a home in the ground, a dug-in type like yours, could be thrown up in the air 2 feet and over as far as 6 feet. Complete loss.
So-called pitch books like these are common, and experts say they're misleading.
Here's a home that wasn't tied down. This could happen to you. Technically, that's true. It could happen to you. Likelihood? Slim to none.
Remember, the state's expert says that because of the way it's dug into the ground, this home does not need earthquake bracing. And if you think the salesman's earthquake photos are scary, wait till you hear his price.
It would run $10,950 for all of this at once. Okay, you're going to get this for $94.30.
Almost 6 times what the state's expert says it should cost to make this home ship-shape. Charging a high price is not illegal, but you may be interested to learn how some companies set their prices. Sources tell us it's not based on the cost of labor and materials, but on how much the salesman thinks the customer's got.
A legitimate company has one price list, and that's what they stick to, and that's the price list that is shown to the customer. These guys that are going around that are inflating prices, they have 2 price lists.
Worst markup on cost of a job that you come across?
Most often 3, 4, or 5 times higher.
And that's if the work is even needed in the first place.
If the work is even needed in the first place.
We decided to go back to the salesmen we'd watched on hidden camera to hear what they had to say.
I hate this bidding crap.
Remember Bill Rysick, who said that getting bids is useless? We talked by phone with his employer, California Mobile Home Services. The owner said he tries to give every customer a fair shake and referred us to several local churches who are happy with the work he's done for them. And what about Shannon Taylor, who sat and sat but never inspected? He declined an on-camera interview, but told us he feels he's experienced enough to see what a home needs without having to crawl under it. And why did he sit so long? We thought he was killing time to make the homeowner think he was really inspecting. But Taylor told us that's not the case. He says he just likes to spend a few quiet moments planning his sales pitch. And he says that's what we saw him doing here. We also tried to contact the other company that sold a job without inspecting. The same company that told Sarah and June Hemsley they had termites. But first we had to solve a little mystery, figuring out who the company really was.
Advanced Mobile Home Service.
Investigators told us some companies use multiple names to confuse consumers and to make it difficult to find them when they get in trouble. In the case of Advance, we found 4 corporate names that all seem to lead back to this man, Richard Medhurst, who had his contractor's license revoked last year, and who has also been the target of lawsuits by consumers. Is he still in the business?
Mr. Medhurst?
When we first spoke with him, he said no, that he no longer worked in mobile home repair and was in no way connected with the company that came to Rosie's house. We accepted that, and that's why we were surprised when, just a couple of weeks later, we happened to find him at the company's office.
Sorry?
Can I talk to you about, I want to find out if SoCal and Advance and Allstate are all connected, are they?
Absolutely not.
Do you still work here? Mr. Medhurst, can I ask you a question about this one check? This is made out to Advance for work that we had done, and yet the call came back from SoCal. You said they're not connected.
$10,950.
Finally, remember Rob from Coachman, the guy with the highest price? He did not return phone calls, but when we visited his office, he did talk with us.
You know it doesn't need all these things.
No, wait a second. That's where I differ. That's where I have a problem with you.
He defended his proposed earthquake bracing, even though our experts said it wasn't necessary.
I look at something like that and I say, hey, look, if this was my parents, would I want earthquake bracing under the home? Would I want the most reasonable earthquake bracing under the home? Yes, I would.
But remember, his price was twice that of the competition. Rob said his boss set the prices, and that interested us, because the boss is this man, Clifton Stultz, vice president of Coachman. And this was Clifton Stultz just 3 years ago, under arrest. He pleaded guilty to grand theft based on charges that, while working as a mobile home repair salesman, he convinced elderly customers to give him blank checks, and then cashed those checks for nearly 1,000 times the value of the work performed. He ended up serving 2 years in prison. Now he's back in the mobile home repair game.
You serve time? Yeah. You serve time for bilking old people.
Well, grand theft.
Grand theft.
And
Of course, it is not illegal to be an ex-con. In fact, Stultz told us it's really a plus.
because I, of all people, know who is ripping off seniors out here. I don't want to. If anybody's going to do something wrong, I would spot it a mile away.
The state's watchdog says he'll spot it too, and that companies who rip off seniors should be scared.
It is a big, serious crime. We're going to find them. We're going to take them out.
But though he says he's doing his best, in reality, once a company has a license, the law makes it very, very hard to take that license away. And, believe it or not, even though the state's expert called most of their proposed work unnecessary, even though some of their prices were amazingly high, even though some of them lied to the homeowner, the Contractors Board says none of these salesmen committed a crime. Consumer advocates say that your best defense is you.
Almost every one of my victims has said to me something didn't seem right. And if that gut feeling is there, go with it, because 99% of the time, you're right.
Some final notes on the companies. Southwest Professional Inspection and Construction Services has declared bankruptcy. The Contractors Board told us the company left 60 customers with unfinished work. Another firm, Coachman Mobile Home Services, has forgiven a customer's $2,200 debt, citing its own substandard workmanship on her home.
Wow. So like people say, your best defense is you. You're the best defense here. If you're going to try to do your work in your mobile home, you need to do some homework, have some prior knowledge, or do some research beforehand to know exactly what you're doing. That way you won't be scammed. Well, you know what? We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Did you ever get injured at work? If you have, you might have heard of OSHA. That's what this next story is all about. We're talking about OSHA, the federal government that helps out with work injuries. But does it really report all the injuries that you're about to see? In this case right here, it's all about kernels of core. Here's Lee Thompson.
thousands of pounds of corn. People who work in corn silos will tell you the grain can grab you, pull you under, and cut off your oxygen. Workers know that walking on a sea of corn is one of the most hazardous jobs there is. Patrick Hayes was 19 years old when he took a job at this feed mill in northern Florida. After he was ordered to clean inside a bin without proper safety equipment, his father, Ronnie, became concerned.
I said, Patrick, don't ever do that. He said, yeah, but Daddy, they told me they're going to make me a supervisor. And I said, Patrick, don't listen to that. I don't care what they tell you. You know, don't do anything that looks unsafe.
On October 22, 1993, Patrick was ordered into one of the bins to do what may be one of the most dangerous jobs in the business, something known as walking the corn. He was told to scrape down grain stuck high up on the inside walls. All the while, an auger was creating a whirlpool. It was sucking in the corn beneath him. Suddenly, the grain became like quicksand. Rescue workers tried frantically to save Patrick. Using air tanks, they literally swam through the corn to find him.
Pat smothered in 170,000 pounds of corn. It took them 5.5 hours to get my son's body out of the bin.
Patrick worked at Shawl Farms, a large feed mill and chicken processing plant in Defuniak Springs, Florida. It is the largest employer in the area. Patrick had only worked there 3 months before the coroner had to call Ronnie to come identify his son's body.
It was so painful. Tears running down his cheek, corn dust in his mouth and nose and eyes. It was excruciatingly painful what happened to him. And the thought of that today still haunts me, the picture of his face.
Anytime a worker is killed, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration is called in to investigate. OSHA's job is to protect worker safety by inspecting work sites and issuing fines to employers caught breaking safety laws. When OSHA's inspector arrived on the scene at Shawl Farms, she apparently became more and more concerned about what Patrick had been ordered to do. She started asking questions about walking the corn. According to the OSHA inspector's report, Shawl's safety director admitted he was fully aware of the danger, but said, Shawl Farms, Inc. for the past couple of years has operated under the roll the dice philosophy. That being, we will just take our chances until something happens to change our minds.
That is an appalling statement.
Joe Deere is head of OSHA.
Because that's an admission that we're going to knowingly let workers expose themselves to hazards and run the risk of a serious or potentially fatal accident.
After a complete investigation, OSHA's inspector recommended Shawl Farms be given the most serious penalty, willful violations. It's a charge that can only be used when an inspector determines a company deliberately ignored safety laws. A willful violation is so serious, a company can be criminally prosecuted, and it brings with it the highest fines. In this case, the inspector proposed 5 willful violations and $500,000 in fines. But in spite of the evidence, when the case got to the OSHA area director, things changed dramatically. He knocked the fine all the way down to $42,000, less than 1/10 the original amount. And the willful charges, those violations the inspector said were intentional, suddenly became unintentional. They were reduced to a level that all but eliminated the possibility of criminal prosecution.
Patrick died a second time for me. That's how much my trust was betrayed by OSHA. In fact, the day I found out about it, I cried. I sat down and cried. It hurt that bad. If I can bury Patrick again. I called it a judgment call.
Joe Deere says government lawyers were unclear whether OSHA law applied in this case.
The grain handling final rule says, and I quote, "It is certainly clear to OSHA that employees must never be permitted to walk or stand on grain." Period.
Right.
Is it possible that OSHA lawyers didn't know the law?
No, that's not possible.
In fact, in this confidential internal OSHA report on the Hayes case obtained by Dateline, an OSHA official admits the law was clear and the willful violations occurred and should have been brought against Showell Farms.
Look, I met with Ron Hayes. I told him at the time I'd do everything I could. I've referred this case to the Department of Justice for consideration as a criminal case.
But after our interview, Deere's office admitted the Justice Department almost never brings a case unless a company willfully, deliberately ignores the law. And in the Showell Farms case, OSHA wiped out all those willful charges that indicated the violations were intentional. After Patrick's death, Ronnie Hayes received $2,500 from workers' compensation to pay for his son's funeral. And you may not know it, but in Florida, like in most states, workers' compensation laws that provide for funerals also help shield companies from wrongful death suits. So Ronnie Hayes says his only avenue for justice is OSHA.
The fact is that, OSHA starts by giving away the store. And it's rare that they don't give away the store.
Joseph Kenny runs the National Safe Workplace Institute, a worker advocacy group that has published several studies critical of OSHA enforcement.
If other enforcement agencies that enforce the law, were to have the same sort of enforcement ethic that OSHA has, we would have a lot more uncollected taxes. We probably would have more bank robbers and other thieves and criminals and felons out on the street.
Critics charge even when a worker has been killed and a company has been caught deliberately breaking safety rules, OSHA almost always reduces the fines. Is it true? To find out, Dateline decided to do a computerized analysis of OSHA's own records over the last 10 years. We looked at worker deaths where OSHA's own inspectors recommended willful violations and fines. And we found a pattern. Just since Patrick Hayes was killed,
Tragedy struck
in Panama City, Florida, 24-year-old Bennett Morrison died when the amusement park ride he was helping to construct collapsed. OSHA supervisors erased the intentional violation and reduced the $56,000 fine down to $7,000. In Columbus, Ohio, 54-year-old John Grimm was crushed between two 5,000-pound dies at this tool works. OSHA bosses erased the two willful violations and reduced the $52,000 fine down to $16,000. Eau Claire, Wisconsin. An explosion blew off the top of this silo, killing 24-year-old Mark Handeland. 5 willful violations erased by OSHA supervisors, who then lowered a $95,000 fine down to $48,000. Dayline's investigation of OSHA's record shows even when a worker has died, even when OSHA's inspectors conclude the company deliberately ignored safety regulations, the fine is reduced 90% of the time. And major fines more than $50,000, they're reduced 99% of the time. Keep in mind, we analyzed OSHA's own numbers to get our results. And it turns out the agency itself didn't know just how often fines are reduced. Joe Deere heads OSHA.
It surprises and discourages me.
If major fines are reduced 99% of the time, is that really a deterrent to companies to clean up the workplace?
The penalties have to have an impact on the companies. But we have to make choices. Our resources are limited. It's not possible to go to court on every penalty in every case we have.
Joe Deere says OSHA settles many cases because court battles tie up valuable OSHA field inspectors.
Our inspectors would be spending all their time in hearing rooms, not inspecting workplaces. So you are going to be able to find circumstances in which penalties are reduced.
The way you buy deterrence is through tough enforcement, not sitting on your butt and wheeling and dealing with people who've broken the law.
The word is out that OSHA either can't or isn't doing the job. So do what you want to do.
I hear that. And there are some employers who take advantage of that. But there are also employers who paid $3 million penalties.
But during the past 10 years, OSHA has collected only 7 fines over $1 million after a worker died and OSHA inspectors recommended willful violations. Only 7 out of more than 500 cases. And Dateline's computer check of OSHA data on worker deaths where the company was cited for deliberately putting someone in danger shows that over the last 10 years, the government has only collected 33 cents for every dollar of proposed fines.
If a penalty is reduced and you get the correction of the hazards, that may be an extremely justifiable trade-off.
When you make a deal to get a company to clean up its act, how do you know that it's been done?
We follow up. We do inspections.
But that's not always true. During the past 2 years, Dateline found at least 7 cases where workers were killed, OSHA inspectors discovered deliberate safety violations, and no follow-up inspections were done. Instead, companies simply sent materials claiming they had fixed the problem. And in Showell Farms' case, where inspections were made, a full year after the company told OSHA it would no longer permit men to walk the corn, the state of Maryland caught the company telling men to do it at another plant.
Is this a company that when you reduce the fine, it cleaned up its act?
Well, that's bad news.
Showell Farms was recently sold, and the new owners say all of the safety problems have been addressed. Ronnie Hayes is now turning his attention to what he calls the bigger issue.
OSHA agency is broken and has to be fixed from top management to bottom management.
Hayes is a man with a mission. He quit his hospital management job, started collecting documents on OSHA, and he's not giving up.
I'm looking for justice. I am looking for justice not only for me, but for the next family that is put in this situation. We're going to make sure that we get what we need done.
Even if it takes you the rest of your life?
Yes, even if it does take me the rest of my life. I will be able to meet that boy one day and face him and say, I did everything I could do, son.
In its 25 years, OSHA is credited with reducing the number of deaths and injuries on the job. The workplace is safer. But many in Congress think OSHA's regulations hinder American competitiveness. Tomorrow, the House will vote on a proposal to cut OSHA's budget by $50 million. And later this fall, the House is expected to vote on a bill that would strip OSHA of many of its current enforcement powers.
Wow. Just imagine that. Reducing fines because of workplaces tied up in court. It's probably how they get you. See if I can find another story. Coming up next, TxDOT has a campaign to click it or ticket. I'll focus in on teen drivers. Stay with us. Click it or ticket. If you've been accused now of driving without a seatbelt on, you could be ticketed for that in this state. TxDOT is doing the same thing with teens. Think about it, as a teenager, you get your license at 16. But y'all forget that wearing your seatbelts, it's required by law. As we're going to show you, a lot of accidents have happened. Here's Braden Schaff.
It is the law, but the more important thing is it is about keeping people safe. Like I said, you're much more likely to survive a crash when you're wearing that seatbelt.
Sergeant Rob Mallory with DPS said seatbelts make a difference, and 86% of survivors of fatal crashes were wearing them. When ejected from a vehicle, those not wearing seatbelts are 20 times more likely to be killed in the crash. Ricky Daly with TxDOT said 162 teen drivers died in Texas in 2022 that didn't have a seatbelt on. That's compared to 144 the previous year.
if you consider the number 162 teens lost in crashes who weren't wearing their seatbelts, that's 3 full school buses.
Daly explained that TxDOT urges every rider to wear a seatbelt during every ride. He said people can set a good example of wearing a seatbelt, like parents for their kids. In 2022, of the 320 teens ages 15 to 20 killed in Texas car crashes, he said more than half were not wearing a seatbelt.
51% of the teens who died in crashes in 2022 weren't wearing a seatbelt. And it's been proven over and over that the seatbelt is your best protection in a car crash.
In TxDOT's Corpus Christi district, which has 10 counties, Haley said 8 car crashes happened in 2022 where unrestrained teens were seriously injured. Sergeant Mallory explained that 2 teen passengers that died in a car accident on Highway 359 last month weren't wearing seatbelts. He said people should have a different perspective about being required to wear one.
What's your why for why you wear your seatbelt? Because there is somebody out there that loves you and cares about you that, doesn't want to be asking that question. Had they just been wearing their seatbelt, would they still be with us today?
Now, the driver and passengers could face fines up to $200 for not wearing a seatbelt. Law enforcement says that everyone in the car is required by law to wear one, and it's just as important to wear one in the back seat as it is in the front. Mike.
It's the law, and it's common sense. It's common sense. We all need that. I get that you don't like wearing your seatbelts and all, but it's the law. You may say, well, I understand it's the law, but I have evidence that you can't wear, you can survive without wearing a seatbelt. Okay, well, show me the evidence you can survive without wearing a seatbelt. And maybe then you'll prove it to court. And maybe then you'll prove it to state lawmakers. And then you can prove it to the federal government. They'll laugh at your face. You can sit there saying to them, well, here's the evidence I have right here that says you can survive without a seatbelt. They'll listen and go, yeah, right. It's a safety concern for why somebody you love cares about you. I care about y'all. Wear your damn seatbelts. It's the law. It is illegal to drive without a seatbelt. I mean, you want to pay fines? Okay, well, good luck paying some fines. Paying over $200 in fines. If you want to pay more fines, then that's your choice. Pay more fines. Then when you wasted your life, so y'all gotta sit there and say to yourself, hey, you know what? This needs to happen. I need to understand that if I don't wear a seatbelt, I can lose my license and I can be fined. I understand. I get it. I know where you're coming from. Where did you get your license from? A cereal box, or did you take a written test? Because I know all you teens out there want to go driving around, cruising to town, picking up your girlfriend and going to the movies and all. You still gotta have your learner's permit. Then you take the written test. Then you take that test. Then you get your license. It doesn't take common knowledge for you to sit and say you gotta wear a seatbelt. There's more to traffic school than meets the eye. And pretty soon on Throwback Thursday, it's all about that traffic school. That's coming soon on our next Throwback Thursday. I gotta point this out that if I was part of this, if I was part of that accident, that would not be me. But a lot of times, we have to make sure it does not happen again. A lot of people sit there and say that they're sorry for not wearing a seatbelt, won't happen again. Well, it doesn't matter. I understand. I know where y'all are coming from. Nobody wants to wear their seatbelts, but it's the law, and you can be ticketed and fined. And if you can't pay the fine, then that's your choice. Do community service. Just tell the judge, hey, I can't pay a fine. You say that, well, they'll make it your community service. Safety vest, you go out pick up trash. or go mow the lawn. When we come back, an issue about community service and our viral break. Stay with us. Community service is unpaid work that benefits the community. It can be done by one person or group of people. Community service is different from volunteer because it's not only done voluntarily. And you can be sentenced to community service in Texas. And lots of other states have sentenced people to community service. Texas many community places, including social services organizations, non-profit organizations, and religious organizations. I mean, just look up some stuff. For accounts, community service hours must be performed in any governmental agency, non-profit organization, or other organization that provides services to the general public that enhance social welfare and other general well-being of the community as determined by the court. And like we talked about in that truancy court case, House Bill 2398, I mean, it's all about the truancy court, what they could send you with. 50 hours of community service. That's how it is. I mean, going up, community service is all about getting a vest and picking up trash. So when the judge sends you to community service, what about for court? It's not legal advice, but you may want to consult. Hospitals, churches, you can do community service for those. But community service is just, that's how it was. When I was growing up, community service is all about wearing a safety vest and picking up garbage. Let me show you a picture. Going back to the picture here, let me show you. I'll show you some examples. Park cleanup, donate your old clothes. They are community service ideas. That's what the judge could send you with. You got things like, school supplies, backpacks, grocery coupons, walk kids home from school, fix things in your community, clean up your park, host a bake sale. Those are like community. Those are things about community service that you can do. And when you're sent to community service, that's what you got to do. Help out your community. That's unpaid. So if you can't pay the fine, community service is key. That's why courts are sentencing people to community service, like in truancy court, up to 50 hours. Most of the time, it's 500 hours of community service. In the Mighty Ducks movie, Gordon Bombay was sentenced to community service for drinking and driving, and had his license suspended. So for 500 hours, he did his community service, but he wanted to quit. But he quit his attorney job to coach a team. So that's basically what community service is all about. All right. Okay, here. Did you ever have that moment of when teacher tells you to be quiet and you want to say quiet? Take a look at this.
No, be quiet. Everyone be quiet. I don't need an extra mouth. When I need an input, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Whoa. You see what I mean here? Ain't nobody gonna report this teacher. One teacher told me that I say, "Excuse me, I'm trying to help you," and the teacher stood quietly. I know I had that person in my class. So relatable. It really happened to me today. This was 8 days ago. Prep Rally was canceled in 25 minutes, and students were immediately sent back to their classes. As a result, 6-period class had expanded time. 9 teachers had planned to give out more work at the pep rallies. The pep rally was supposed to be for a whole hour. So the next 20 minutes, the teacher was mad and told us to be quiet for 50 times. She even put ASMR later to get the class to be quiet. I don't need no extra Mal. It's my teacher. In 5th grade, then I got clown. I'm in the 7th grade, and everybody does that. This clip deserves common sense. Listen, just because teachers have a license doesn't mean... Just because little kids don't have a license doesn't mean they don't want to help out. I mean, helping people is key. That's why friends are created to help out people. That's why when we leave school, we want to be able to help out our community any way we can. And look, I'm not badging teachers. They have higher pay. I mean, they pay higher than janitors or whatever. So, and they get their degrees from colleges wherever. And I get it. We gotta have our kids help out our teachers, no matter what. No matter what. Even if, I mean, everyone's like being disrespectful. It always happened to me. I told somebody to be quiet and say, "Hey, I don't need to hear people playing teacher. It's just help. H-E-L-P. Here's the common sense. If students want to help out, let them help out. You don't need to be rude and disrespectful about it. If you don't want that to happen again, you just say, hey, thank you for helping me out, but I got this next time, I got this. Just say it nicely next time. Be nice about it. And don't go in there being all rude saying, hey, I don't need your help. Because that's very disrespectful. Very, very disrespectful. How about this one? Teacher asked you to break down your answer. And this one here, I mean, this one, let me ask you this. You ever asked to go to the bathroom and all of a sudden, teacher says, wait till one person comes in? This was very, very disgusting to watch.
I really need to use it. No, not until the last student returns with the bathroom pass.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God.
Can I go use the bathroom? I really need to use it. No, not until the last student returns with the bathroom pass.
Oh God, that was nasty to watch. Nasty.
Can I go use the bathroom? I really need to use it. No, not.
That was freaking nasty. Bro, you say, bro said, yo, bro, I got water. He's like, nah, him. Bro was thirsty. Where is? Bro needs water. I drink everything. You got 30 gallons of water? Yeah, here's all that. That'll do. That was nasty. Drinking out of the toilet water. He think that he's a dog here? You know what, Robert? We never covered something like this. I'm not even too tired to speak. That's Give Me a Break for this Saturday going to Sunday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Monday, even if it means drinking like a dog out the toilet. So does Shaggy. Good night.